My name is Douglas Vogt. I'm a scientist, writer, amateur archaeologist. I'm the first one in history to write and create an information theory of existence. My first book was Reality Revealed, The Theory of Multidimensional Reality, published in 1978. In the book, it presents an information theory of existence and applies the theory to at least 50 different unknown phenomena. One of the things I had figured out was what causes the Ice Age and polar reversal and why they happen at the same time. My most recent book is God's Day of Judgment, The Real Cause of Global Warming. It's basically a follow-up, and I was able to figure out when the next polar reversal is going to be, which is between September and December 2046. It corresponds with the next Gleisberg cycle, which I'll explain later. The reason why I wrote the book is basically to save your lives. If you were born from 1980 on, chances are you're not going to collect a dime of your Social Security. Not that the system will go bankrupt. I'm sure government will fork over the money and take it from somebody else to pay your Social Security. It's that they can't guarantee they're going to be around. The reason why we have global warming is because we're headed for a polar reversal. At the same time of the polar reversal, our sun novas. Now, that goes contrary to what is taught in school, and I know that. And the reason is there's only two ways you can describe the universe. What's taught in school right now, and I mean in colleges and universities, is a matter-oriented theory of existence, even to the point of quantum mechanics, envisions everything as particles. The only other way to describe the universe is that it's information, that information's the dominant thing in the universe. And in essence, part of quantum mechanics says the same thing. When they insert a graviton, which is a hypothetical particle, the equation goes to infinity, which didn't make any sense to them, but in reality, it's really saying it's going from that other dimension. For this first couple of tapes, I'm going to focus on basically what probably interests most of you, which is the causes of the Ice Age, why we have global warming, is there global warming, and is global warming caused by mankind, basically CO2 emissions. The theory that I came up with, this information theory of existence, calls for basically clock cycles through time. How else do you know that you're in a synchronous system? Is you look for these clock cycles and resynchronizing frequencies. When I first wrote the first book, Reality Revealed, I was looking for stars that novaed right on these timelines. And in 1977, there were no stars seen then. There was in 2002, which I'll show you later. But I came across something called Vogt globulars, which are basically dark areas in space. They were all around the Earth, or all around the Sun. About 11 to 14,000 light years away. And basically, there's a big gas shell around a star. And they couldn't see the star yet. In 1989, I made a database of all known stars, open clusters, and globular clusters in our galaxy. This is what it looks like. What I discovered was 6 blank periods in space, going from here to about 72,000 light years away. The distance between, now when I mean a blank period, I mean there was no stars visible from about 970 light years to about 1,300 light years. And that can't be. There's stars there, but you have to ask yourself, why can't we see them? And the reason is when a star novas, its gas shell or dust shell expands and it conceals the light coming from that star. That's what those Vogt globulars were also. So I graphed them, and this is what it looks like. Four of the 6 were exactly 12,000 light years apart, which is basically my clock cycle running through time. By the way, this same clock cycle, this number, 12,068, I corresponded with 6 polar reversals on the planet, 6 Ice Age advances, carbon-14 dating, glacial moraine and till and drumlins, and found the same number in the Old Testament. In the generations of Adam and Shem, it shows up there. Now that'll be for another tape, but I want to let you know it's in code there. In fact, the total chapters and verses in the Torah is 6,034, which is 1/2 that number. The total chapters and verses in what we call the Old Testament is 24,136. So by the 1st and 2nd century, they knew the number was important. I don't have any proof that they knew it represented the polar reversal cycle. But that will be for another tape. Anyway, back to stars. When a star novas, it looks like this after it. These are just a small example of stars that have nova. Now they call them, and they mislabel them, planetary nebula. But really the fact is what they see is a star in the middle, larger and smaller than our own sun, with a big gas shell around it. And they all seem to look differently too, which is kind of interesting. These are all found within our own galaxy. Now, on March 20th, March of 2002, the Navy photographed, Naval Observatory photographed V838 Monocratus. I read all the journal articles as to what it is. They think it's this dust shell around it, obviously a dust shell, they call a light echo, which has got to be the stupidest explanation I've ever heard in my life. The only reason I think they did it is because they're trying to save and rescue their philosophy of science. And also not scare people that stars nova all the time, and the star's still there. It didn't blow up. Everything you were taught in school 20, 30, and 40 years ago is wrong regarding a nova, at least an ordinary nova. Now, what you're seeing here, that's when it blew in March of 2002. You can clearly see the dust shell. This is a very large star, much, much larger than our own. And you can see as the dust shell, you see there's some holes in the dust shell itself, and as it expands, these holes get larger and larger. This is in December of 2002. So over a series of like 6, 7 months, you can clearly see the star still there. It hasn't changed its appearance to a lot of infrared and probably ultraviolet also, and then the dust shell expanding. This same dust shell, now, I'm going to show you what the dust looks like. These are samples that were found by our moon landers and the Apollo missions. 27% of the surface of the moon that faces the Earth is made up of these little tiny glass beads. They're 0.1 to about 2 millimeters in length, in size. They're mostly glass. They're an orange, they're greenish color, a variety of different colors. Here's another shape that comes from the moon also. These little dumbbells. Now these are not formed by volcanic activity or meteor impacts. Not at all. What's unique about these things, what you're looking at is the sun's fingerprint. They have a number of radioactive elements, aluminum-26, beryllium-10, and a number of others, that could only have formed in the sun, in the corona of the sun, where the heat is great enough to do nuclear fusion and fission. And also, they have no gas bubbles in it, which is common for, if it was a volcanic eruption, there's always gas bubbles in the glass. These have none. The one who had hit dead on was a guy named Thomas Gold, the late geologist Thomas Gold. And his job was to figure out why there were small craters on the surface of the moon. Some were as small as 6 inches up to a couple of yards. And they were covered with glass on the inside, but they couldn't find any hard meteors. The reason is when our sun blows, it throws off glass. Glass lumps, meteors, rock, everything. So it basically was, if it was splattered with a lump of molten glass the size of my fist here, it wouldn't leave any rock. It would splatter, and that's what he saw, was glass on the inside of these small meteors. The next part 2 will have the evidence that I discovered that was from the sun on the Earth in core samples. But remember, this event happens, the reason why we have global warming is because our sun's output has been increasing since the 1900s, in fact 1890s. And it mirrors the sunspot cycle. It has nothing to do with mankind whatsoever. It has to do with the sun. And that will be shown in part 2.